Black power! 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 Black power!
In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankango and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, who spirit and sacrifice. We ask these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We ask those Africans who went with Berkman, Dessalines, to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
Black power. 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 Black power.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth. Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
Black power! 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 Black power!
The essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing. What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself, and what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself, and what you know of yourself depends on what you have been told.
Dr. Ben Yakanan tells us that when our God and our Savior look like our master and enslaver, or your master and enslaver, you become the principal agent in your own destruction. We continue our search, in search of our God. In finding our God, we find ourselves and save ourselves. Whether it be goddess Idimili of Igbo, Heteu of Kimet, Holidumare, Obatala, Odudua, Yoruba. It is our own God that assures us of life, prosperity, and health, unity, dignity, and power. As Damani Ajikam tells us, African cosmologists have created a symbolic world built on the realities of time and space. These two realities combined to form the structured universe, culture, and human beings. These ideas help us to establish cultural behavior. They serve as models for the way our ancestors lived and how various customs and traditions originated. In search of our God, we continue that search this morning.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth. Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
African family for development.
I'm Asada Shakur. The first time I heard a tape of one of Mamiya's radio broadcasts, it was the first time I fully understood why the United States government was so intent on putting him to death. I make a special appeal to you, sisters and brothers, to fight tooth and nail to save Mamiya's life and to free him from the grips of his oppressors. As you honor our forefathers and foremothers, I urge you to honor our living heroes. When you honor the names of Nat Turner, Harriet Tubman, and Malcolm X, I urge you to honor the names of Geronimo Gijaga, Sundiata Acoli, Mutulu Shakur, and Mumia Abu Jamal. I urge you not to forget and not to betray our living heroes. If we ignore their struggle, we are ignoring our own. If we betray our living history, then we are betraying ourselves. We could not save Malcolm X, but we can save Mamiya. We can save him, and we must save him. Because we love our brother, and we need our brother to help us fight for freedom. Free Mamiya Abu Jamal, free all political prisoners. Let us carry on our tradition to freedom.
Yàlla di la sàmm ba nga am juróom ñeenti weer wàcc la ci àdduna bi boole ca nag ay xéwali xéwal boo ko tooñee boo jéggaloo mu baal boko ñaane mo may la nga sant ko mu dolli la laaju lu dul nag ma jaamu laaju lu dul nag ma jaamu yow boo goree war ko jaamu sant ko sunu borom bi waahidun kenn la amuma sunu borom bi waahidun la ilaha illallah sunu borom bi waahidun kenn la amuma sunu borom bi waahidun buur bi Yàlla moo ñu gën a gore buur bi Yàlla moo ñu gën a gore ndax léeg-léeg nga topp xéewal yi ba fàtte ko képp ko neexoon ci diir bu gàtt kenn dootul xam fu sa buntu kër féete loo mën a nekk ci àdduna war nga caa boole jaamu Yàlla def ay digleem bàyyi ay tereem te bañ a woote benn buur bu dul Yàlla sunu borom bi waahidun kenn la amuma sunu borom bi waahidun la ilaha illallah sunu borom bi waahidun kenn la amuma sunu borom bi waahidun la ilaha illallah.
As we look forward to the upcoming tribute to the victims of the slaver, the slave ship, the Zong, the theme this year, as we pay tribute to the victims of the Zong, say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. It's exactly that way. Say you're sorry. Apologies now. 132 reasons why. You might recall that in 1781, the ship the Zong, captained by Luke Collingwood, left Ghana in West Africa for Jamaica with 442 captured Africans. During the voyage, some of the enslaved Africans on board the Zong fell ill and died. The captain ordered that 132 Africans be thrown overboard to reduce the losses that would accrue to the ship's owners. The ship's owners, of course, Mrs. Gregson. On November 29, 1781, 54 enslaved Africans, mainly women and children, were dragged from below deck. Unshackled and heaved from the ship into the ocean. The following day, more were murdered. In the end, Collingwood had thrown 132 Africans to their deaths. When the ship finally landed in Black River, Jamaica on December 22, 1781, it had only 208 Africans who were later sold for £36 a head. We're going to Black River on December 22 to pay tribute to the victims of the gong and to say to Britain and to Europe and to David Cameron, say you're sorry. Apologies now. 132 reasons why. Pan-Africanism or perish. Reparations now, as our elder ancestor John Henry Clark reminds us. And in all of that, we're saying when your God and your Savior look like your master and your enslaver, you become the principal agent in your destruction. How many days, how many weeks now is it since one of the chief advisors to the Minister of Education here in Jamaica, Mr. Franklin Johnson, 59 days now since he published in one of our leading national newspapers that the Reparations Commission, the CARICOM Reparations Commission, is a Ponzi scheme. Since he dared to tell us that when our children look at us and tell us that we sold ourselves into slavery and that we are responsible and that we're guilty of something. 59 days now since he published in one of our national newspapers that the call for reparations is, in my own words, stupidness. That we should get over it and leave it alone. Move on already. And he remains one of the chief advisors to our Minister of Education. Something is wrong in a country that allows any advisor to the Minister of Education, any advisor in the Ministry of Education to spew publicly such hatred against African people, such self-hatred. Someone who's got the minds of our children in their hands. Something is wrong in a country when we call for apologies from David Cameron and from Britain, and we will not demand the resignation or at least an apology from Mr. Franklin Johnson. We know it would not be sincere, but something is wrong when the former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson writes a public letter to David Cameron to apologize, to say he was wrong for saying in Parliament that we should get over slavery. Something is wrong in a country when so many of our leading academics and commentators and columnists would call upon David Cameron to apologize on Britain and would allow Mr. Franklin Johnson to remain as an advisor. As a private citizen, Mr. Franklin Johnson is entitled to say whatever he wants. But as an advisor to the education minister, he's not. And he should be made himself to oversee the curriculum that corrects the miseducation of our African babies. We're not going to eliminate imperialism by shouting insults against it. Our elder ancestor Amilcar Cabral tells us, for the best or worst shout against imperialism, whatever its form, is to take up arms and fight. Are you ready, African people?
And I'll be with you to the end.
African, reuniting the African family for development.
The essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing.
In the beginning, the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. The ancestors moved across the waters. Let there be light. Let us make man our image and after our likeness, and there was light. I am a witness. I emerged from the darkness. And if you cannot find it within your heart to forgive me, just remember, this is how they made me. Snatch my mother's breast. Some seduce, some surrender, they killed the rest. Now there's this bruise and blood exudes from the lower lip. God, I miss my mother's milk. If only I could have. God, I miss my mother's milk. If only I could have just one more sip. And the choir sings, Jesus, Jesus, come and save me, cause this is how they made me. Mother Africa's breast is swollen with the remembrance of a child who once nursed without care. His toddler fingers tugged at her hair. In fact, the truth and truth the fact, we all remember receiving life there. Then bullets and whips came. Evil succumbed to Cain. Now there's a restless snake bleeding inside this locked chain. I wonder if I hadn't told, would they have paid me? I can't say that I'm too sure now. Just be reminded, this is how they made me. Snatch, milk ran to my mother's feet. A primal scream still registers in my disenchanted dreams. And by all means, be taken freighter, don't stop in New Orleans. I say that as if Charleston is in it better. And I remember all those who prayed for me. Just remember, this is how they made me. Snatch, they were up and down the coast. Whole families became inventory. Blood and sweat ran day and night. But it was the milk that spilled the most. Now mother is insanely sick, but longing for that tug at her nipple from that abandoned child who is just a memory or a ghost. Snatch, Jesus, can you save me? I feel like a road. This is how they pay me, please. Accept my psychopathic analogy. Well, this is how they made me see. I was black and became colored. I was African and became Negro. Well, they were up and down the coast. Those are young ones they wanted most. Keenness was toppled and
Made Me, the Healing Hands. Drum Journey. Made Me. As I say good morning to my brother Jomo in Buffalo, New York. Good morning to you, Jomo, who's on the drums on this one. Good morning to you, my brother. I know you tune in as usual. Want to go to the phone lines now to speak with our brother, Professor Wazir Mohammed, about the statement from the Justice for Walter Rodney Committee on the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry just ahead of tomorrow's deadline. As you know, the statement was put out on November 25. The Commission of Inquiry is scheduled to make their findings public tomorrow. And as I said earlier, the statement under the signature of UC Kirwana has been...
Hello, morning.
Good morning, Professor Wazir Mohammed. Thank you so much for joining us again this morning. When we spoke last week, we did know that a statement would be put out in between, but the Walter Rodney Committee, Justice for Walter Rodney Committee, has put out a statement ahead of tomorrow's deadline. What was the thinking behind the statement, first of all? What led the committee to put out the statement?
Well, we wanted to be clear and to put out a statement that summarizes what has transpired over the course of the inquiry and what led to the inquiry, so that we can remind people as we await the report of the Commission of why this was necessary. As we started the statement, you would note that we says, look, the time has come for direct challenges on the issues of Walter Rodney's unnatural death, which in the inquiry, it was shown that international as well as Guyanese police experts determined from materials found at the crime scene was caused by an electronically triggered device. This crucial evidence came out in the inquiry. And we wanted to remind people ahead of the report. Now, tomorrow is the gazetted deadline.
Yes.
We have not heard from the commissioners nor the government directly that the report is going to be made tomorrow. So we are awaiting that an announcement.
Yeah, and I do find that a bit strange that the silence, I think, is what is strange to me in terms of whether or not the deadline would be met.
Well, yes, I mean, this is supposed to be a public inquiry, and the public needs to have direct information on when the report is going to be available, and because and so we put the reason why we put out this statement is also to raise the public awareness that the report of the inquiry is going to be due in this period. Let me put it that way.
Yes. The statement also addresses some of what has been out there in the public sphere in terms of how the current government, the excuses, can we call them that they gave for wrapping up the commission at this stage. And I think it was important for the statement to do that also. You're also pointing to the earlier deaths of other political figures. What I like with this is how it encapsulates so much in such a short statement. Can we talk a little bit about that, of some of the issues raised in the statement, why they were raised, and what is intended?
Well, the issues raised in the statement in relationship to early political deaths is very important, because, I mean, political deaths should not go without investigation. In a country like Guyana, you had political deaths in the 70s, before the killing of Walter Rodney in 1980, which were treated, as we said in the statement, as unworthy of any investigation. In Walter Rodney's case, he was assassinated on June 13, 1980. There was a government in power, and for over 12 years, his death went uninvestigated publicly. And then in 2005, after 25 years, the National Assembly passed a unanimous motion for an inquiry. And then it took the sitting government, after 5 elections, that was the sitting government at the time, in 2005, it took them until 2013 to establish the inquiry. Now, although this amount of time passed, what we saw was that the commission operated in the most professional and open manner. The commission, as we said, as we pointed out, met in 68 sessions from April 28, 2014 to July 28, 2015, and that the proceedings of the commission were conducted in a manner that ensured the highest level of transparency possible in an inquiry, because it took place in open public, the sessions were adversarial, and also the public was invited into the room, and also the proceedings of the commission was broadcast live in Guyana and available live on the internet. So no one can point to transparency. No one can point to the fact that there was not that the commission did not allow for all evidence or any kind of evidence to be available. The main protagonist in this was the ruling party at the time of his assassination, and they failed to come forward with any evidence to the contrary at the inquiry. They had that opportunity, and we pointed out in the statement that they did not come forward with any evidence.
One of the things that was said in the statement, though, even though all of this was done in such a transparent way as you have outlined, is that government figures mounted a campaign to discredit the commission using innuendo to place it alongside the suspect money launderers of the PPP administration. So the Justice for Walter Rodney Committee is really laying it on the line, speaking out, and now just ahead of the report. So this is a feeling of the committee or is this factual that there was a campaign to discredit the commission?
Yes. I mean, at the end of that, in the process of that campaign and during that campaign, there was a decision, and the public press said it was unanimous from the cabinet that to bring the commission to an end. We would have liked to see the commission continued, at least to allow for key witnesses that the commission wanted to hear from, but that was not possible. And so the commission came to an end in July when, it should have had at least probably another 2 weeks to a month to complete its work. To complete the hearings. Our point is that despite all of that, the crucial evidence came forward in the process of the inquiry.
There's a slap on the wrist here for the current government, and also a kind of a warning towards the end from the committee, which says All right, it's considered, right? We'll advise that even for no higher motive than self-preservation, it meaning the government cannot directly or indirectly be seen as undermining the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry. That is a danger, isn't it?
Well, we have to wait and see. What we are saying is that it would not be in the interest of justice and fairness for there to be any attempt at undermining the inquiry or the report of the inquiry.
Yes.
And that is why we made the statement that that the current government have a chance. I mean, our direct quote from the statement is that we're saying, look, we're saying in this matter, the new president has a chance to establish for himself a record of fairness.
Yes.
That having to date not been smeared by the events and maneuvers of the bloody and felonious assassination of Walter Rodney in 1980, that it is the wish of fair-minded people, us included, that he is not, by his exercise of his authority, to close down the commission, suspected of the civic assassination of the commission's findings.
So can we see this?
And we went on further. We said, look, we said the Attorney General have a responsibility. Based on the evidence that came out within the inquiry to quash the conviction of Donald Rodney in a previous trial, right? Because evidence was withheld from the court, evidence that came forward in this inquiry.
Yes.
And that, basically we said, look, the withholding from the court and the defense, and the defense of evidence favorable to the defense is a feature of dungeon democracy and must be denounced at the highest level of a democratic legal system and government.
Right.
Basically what you're saying is for there to be for ethical governance to be upheld, a new dispensation must put an end to this kind of political maneuverings through the use of the courts.
A very strong language there too, a feature of dungeon democracy, and an appeal I see to the perceived integrity of the new government, the new minister.
In a sense, it's to say, look, I mean, we have to move forward. We have to remember that, when this process began, Walter Rodney was killed 35 years ago. When this process began, and through this entire process, our position is that we have to learn. We have to learn from this inquiry on how to humanize the state, how to humanize the system of government, how to create the construct or a climate where nations or the nation of Guyana can be reconciled. Because the killing of Walter Rodney was a dark moment, not only for Guyana and not only for the family of Walter Rodney and the people of Guyana, but for the people of the Caribbean and peace-loving people across the world. And so we have to put this kind of killings behind us. We have to learn from the way in which this state power is used to carry out these kinds of crimes. I mean, as we have said in time and again, that the killing of Walter Rodney have to be understood as a way in which the state exercises its authority to silence opponents, especially opponents who are on the side of ordinary working people. I mean, in your case in Jamaica, you remember the Shearer government in 1968. tried to silence him by banning him from Jamaica.
Yes.
So what we're saying is that, look, we have to learn from this process, and governments can only be better if they do the right thing, and use these inquiries as a means of educating themselves on how to manage as we go forward.
Professor, and maybe you don't want to preempt, as usual, I know you don't want to preempt the report coming out tomorrow, hopefully, but what would justice for Walter Rodney look like?
Justice for Walter Rodney would basically be about a finding that reflects what happened, or what we know happened, or what came out of the inquiry. And as we said in the opening paragraph of the statement, what came out of the inquiry is that police experts, both at the international and at the Guyanese level, determined from the materials found at the crime scene was caused by a device that was triggered from someplace else. Now, it is that someplace else that is important.
Yes.
You see? Now, it shows that there was basically, that kind of evidence shows that there was malice. Yes? That there was. So what does justice mean? Justice means that the truth should come out, and that the truth should set us free. That the truth should help us to understand, or help us to understand that these things should not happen. We don't know what the report is going to contain, but we would expect that at least the report would show that there was some force out there that was involved in the triggering of this device, in the creation of the crime and the triggering of the death.
And so that a failure to achieve that, at least in part, would suggest what, and would mean what for the liberation process, for fairness and justice.
Think that there is likely to be a failure to achieve that, because the evidence was clear. It came out in the inquiry. It's out there because the inquiry was public. Anybody who was paying attention, and people who were not paying attention, would have access to this record because the inquiry was public. And so I don't think that there is the likelihood of failure to establish, because this has been established already during the course of the inquiry. I don't want to prejudge what the report is going to say.
And I do understand that very clearly. We have just a few more hours before the tomorrow's deadline. We hope that it will be published, and then.
Well, I mean, it's a public inquiry, and I mean, you know, inquiries are supposed to be, the reports are supposed to be made public. This is not the first inquiry in Guyana, and this is not the first inquiry in the Caribbean. And as I said, I mean, part of the reason why the Justice for Walter Rodney Committee was established is precisely to shine the spotlight, and we would continue to do that. As you know, this committee is not a committee only of Guyanese. This committee is a committee of friends of Walter Rodney, defenders of justice, who exists in all corridors of the world. This committee is a very, very broad committee. that brings together people from the Caribbean, people from North America, people from Europe, and people from Africa.
Including myself, I might add.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
We have paid attention to this for more than a year, and we would continue. We await the report, and then when the report comes out, we would have more sessions like this, I would hope, to discuss the report. But we would make that report public. I know a number of people are waiting to, people are writing. Somebody wrote to me this week and said, can I help them to find information on the hearings, because I am finishing my dissertation. And the final chapter is about the inquiry. So you have, and this is one example. I know other people have already begun to write books. So, I mean, the issue here is that this is out in the public, and the report, cannot be hidden. I cannot see any circumstance within which the report will not be public.
Well, we'll talk with you again and shortly, because this is scheduled for tomorrow. In the statement,
we don't have any direct knowledge that the report is going to be due tomorrow. I must add that I have heard through the grapevines that the report may not be available tomorrow, that the commission, that the commissioners have been in touch with the government. I mean, none of this is official.
Yes.
And that the report may come maybe in 2 weeks or so.
All right.
But we are left to, I would like to have something official. I don't want to make that kind of announcement because I don't have any official word that the report is not going to be available tomorrow.
All right. In this statement, this is a good place to end the conversation for this morning. The committee writes, Walter Rodney, standing above the divisions of his 60s, justified all that is noble in African Guyanese and struck a blow against the entrapment in race politics when he declared in defense of Arnold Rampersad, Africans came out of slavery with dignity. Love that. Thank you so much, Professor Wazir Mohammed. We'll talk again
Thank you for having us, and thank you for the time. And I would urge our public to continue to be vigilant. And let's await the report on the inquiry. And let us all use the report when it comes out and the inquiry itself as a way to learn about how governments should be better.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor.
Black power! 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 Black power!
And let us reason together about the past, the present, the future. Bring forward your strong reasons and let us talk about reparation, compensation. Come forward and talk. Fathers of Africa were captured and carried away. The mothers of Africa were captured forget our past. Give us your answer about reparation, for we shall never forget all the chains. The sons of Africa were captured and carried away.
Part of this was made possible in terms of a capture of the sons and the fathers and the mothers and the daughters of Africa. Is a complicity and the integral involvement of the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope in particular. And now Pope Francis is in Africa. You know, there's only one thing that comes to mind, and that Pope Francis and the Roman Catholic Church, they are hypocrites. And we must call it as we see it as African people. We must look through our own lenses as we try to understand where we are. One of the most painful things for me this past few days was to watch Pope Francis in Africa, in Kenya, in Uganda, and now in Central African Republic. If we hadn't forgotten our gods, if we hadn't forgotten who we were, who we are, and I was angry with my brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa when I saw them in their hundreds of thousands, greeting and running and welcoming the symbol of their destruction. And I was angry with them, and I'm still angry. I'm still angry. Even though I know that I shouldn't be, because we were all colonized. But I am mad as hell. How can we ever forget our past? How can we ever forget our God? And why are we welcoming the head of the Roman Catholic Church in the way we have laid out the red carpet in Africa for Pope Francis? God forbid. The God of my mother, the God of my father, the God of my ancestors forbid.
For we shall never forget our pain. No, we shall never forget the underdevelopment of Africa, the exploitation of our little children, the humiliation of our kings and queens and the princes and the princesses. Never, no, never, oh, never forget our pain. We shall never.
Black power! 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 Black power!
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
We say that the Pope is a hypocrite, and we say that without apology. The Pope before him declared Africa the new frontier, sent thousands out with the mandate to re-Christianize Africa. And the fastest growing Catholic population in the world is on the continent of Africa. How come? How did we get here? We have forgotten our God. So here we have the symbol of white supremacy going through Africa, making 19 speeches during his tour of Kenya, Uganda, and the Central African Republic, hypocritically talking about peace between Muslims and Christians, hypocritically even more so, addressing issues of poverty without looking at the root cause or talking about reparations or the Roman Catholic Church's involvement in the enslavement, the African Holocaust, the Ma'afa. There are so many Catholics on the continent of Africa. There are 31 million in the DRC alone, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where rape is now being used as a weapon of war, where blood diamond and blood minerals and blood coltan is the order of the day. And yet you tell me there are 31 million Catholics. No wonder we can't get Congo together no matter how we try. There are 20 million in Nigeria, 14.2 million in Tanzania, 14.1 million in Uganda, 10.8 million in Angola alone. Christianity, projected to be sub-Saharan Africa's largest religious group by 2050, with 1.1 billion followers from 517 million in 2010. The Muslim population is expected to grow at a faster rate, rising from 248 million to 670 million, according to the Pew Research Center. Some of what the Pope has said in Africa so far, and this is where the hypocrisy comes in. And I quote, "May you always be concerned for the needs of the poor and reject everything that leads to prejudice and discrimination, for these things we know are not of God." Really? In Africa? You go to Africa and you tell us that? To reject everything that leads to prejudice and discrimination when you bless the ships that carried enslaved Africans to this shore. You go to Africa and you boldly stand in front of millions of Africans and say that. Really? There must be some level of righteous indignation. And I don't know what has happened to African people that we have come so far from who we are. We've got to invoke the spirit of Chief Taki. We've got to invoke the spirit of Hatshepsut, of Yaya Vita Kimpa. We have to invoke the spirit of Nzinga. But we also have to re-educate ourselves. The destruction of a Negro is complete. This is what the Pope said. Experience shows that violence, conflict, and terrorism feed on fear, mistrust, and the despair born of poverty and frustration. Really. And the most hypocritical thing said by Pope Francis on the continent of Africa, God's name, he said, must never be used to justify hatred and violence. God's name must never be used to justify hatred and violence. He must apologize. And we must demand reparations from the Roman Catholic Church. And we must throw their words back in their faces. He says to Africa, the health of any society depends on the health of its families. And yet you presided over the destruction of the African family on the continent of Africa, separating mothers from their babies, husbands from their wives, daughters from their sisters. And then you come to Africa in 2015 and tell us that God's name must never be used to justify hatred and violence. What are you afraid of? That will do the same to you. That is why Amilcar Cabral should be the Bible we read. My sister, I'm seeing you on Twitter. Thank you so much. Gonna be reading. Talking about the names that they gave us to erase our identities. We must reclaim our names, reclaim our gods, reclaim our identity, reclaim ourselves. We must do this through our genetic memory and remembering, become who we are. Because as long as we keep their Christian names, we'll never be ourselves. We must reclaim our names. We must begin to reclaim our gods. In so doing, we reclaim our identity. We reclaim our land. We have to get to other news just ahead of our guest, Brother David Muhammad, who is in the house, who has written the book Black Studies, the Black Book Mind Revolution, to help us in the conversation on reclaiming our identity, reclaiming our God. Interesting information coming out of Egypt. You know, there was some thermal imaging that was being done in Egypt in the last few weeks. Now we are being told that there is some kind of result. King Tut has been considered to be buried with his mother, Queen Nefertiti. And archaeologists using thermal imaging and ultrasound are now saying that they think that they have found 90% sure Nefertiti's burial chamber. If that is the case, this would be one of the biggest finds in a very long time. We'll watch and see what's happening. You know they're whitewashing our history in Egypt. We know what they're doing, and we can't even believe anything that comes from them, really. But if they're telling us that they're finding Queen Nefertiti's burial chamber, then they probably found it a long time, and Zawi Hawass and the others might have whitewashed everything inside. But truth must rise like oil to the surface at some point. And we think that whatever it's under the Sphinx and whatever it's under is in King Tut's burial chamber, you know, it's ours anyway. But we know of a fact that they're whitewashing our history, whitewashing us out. of history. And as Dr. Ben tells us or asks us, why do we stand and complain? He doesn't see us, he says, digging in Egypt, and yet we complain. So, gotta write our own history, write our own stories. You know, when you go on a tour in Egypt, and every time you go, it gets worse, that the Arabs have claimed the African identity. And so when they're taking you on these tours, they say to you, and this is what our people did, and this is what we did. And you're looking at that, and you might be the only black person standing up in a group of Chinese, because there are more Chinese now the more you go. And you want to hit somebody. And then you say to yourself, then we're going to have to take care of this through the re-education process. We've got some work to do. We can't just stand and talk. We've got some stuff to do. All right, on another note, quickly, we must commend young Dr. Alfred Dawes, and I keep saying young Dr. Dawes, I can't help it. As he addressed the PSOJ forum last Tuesday, and one of the things he said, which side of history, and I'm quoting now, which side of history will you be on? Will you be a defender of a corrupt system, or will you be on the side of those who fought for better governance, transparency, and accountability? The moment to decide is now. I don't want to hear anything else. I just want to go with what Dr. Dawes is saying, ensuring that I'm on the right side of history. We'll pick that up another time. From a holistic point of view, this, applies not only to physical health, but also to fiscal health, mental health, cultural health, African health, identity health. Then we're playing later something from Jimi Hendrix. Friday, November 27 marked the 73rd birthday anniversary of the voodoo child, the guitar genius, our brother Jimi Hendrix. Hey, congratulations to Dibaba, Genzibe Dibaba. She was named Female IAAF World Athlete of the Year for 2015. And the US's Ashton Eaton was voted Male World Athlete. Both set records during 2015. Genzibe in the 1500 and Eaton in the decathlon. So congratulations to our sister from Ethiopia, Genzibe Dibaba. Now here is a vexing issue. Africa's biggest trading partner, China, has now signed a 10-year deal with Djibouti to build a military outpost in the country. So what with AFRICOM, now we got China, a military outpost in Djibouti. The base is to be China's first overseas military base in Africa, and it will be used for, and I'm quoting, escort and humanitarian operations. Get out of here. So China has announced plans to establish its first overseas military base in Africa, signing a 10-year deal with Djibouti to build a military outpost in the Horn of Africa country. The plans signal a major policy shift for Beijing. We've been talking about that for years, since Sudan, which has traditionally invested heavily, according to them, in economic endeavors such as infrastructure development, manufacturing, mining, and agriculture, amongst others. I want to say one thing. To understand China in Jamaica, we must understand China in Africa. It is simple. It is simple. We're going to come back to that. We can be distracted with the environmental issues, or we can talk about the Hong Kong mafia, and we can talk about the military outposts that are being built, and we can talk about how the waters of the Caribbean are being militarized, and we can talk about the militarization of Africa, but we've got to have to understand ourselves at some point. And the way we're going about things in Jamaica, we are not learning anything from what we see unfolding on the continent of Africa. Because in Africa, they said, oh, China does not interfere and doesn't get involved in military operations. And no. But China has been doing this little by little, step by step. We're going to leave it at that for now. We'll return to China and Africa and China and Jamaica another time. Today we're focusing on In Search of Our God, African Spiritual Science. And we're joined in studio by a very, very special guest, Brother David Muhammad, and two other very, very special guests, and we get their names. My very, very good friend, because I'm reading his book, Brother David Muhammad, has joined me in studio. Brother David, good morning.
Good morning to you and your listeners. And I'd like to say from the offset of the program that I've heard you before on the radio, but I was listening, of course, from the beginning of your program this morning. And I think that you are a blessing and a gem to Jamaica and by extension to the wider Caribbean, and a sister with your degree of consciousness, speaking out so powerfully on many of these themes that you have spoken on, I think is truly a great asset.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you so much. And believe me, you are. I've been reading your book, and Black Studies, the Black Book Mind Revolution. Since I got this, I haven't been able to put it down. I thought I would have been finished reading it in a day. That's what I'd planned to do. But here we are. It is easy to read. But you really do have, it's a study book, and you really do, you have to go back to the references and so on, and really, really well written. The other two brothers in the studio with us, Brother Kwame Muhammad and Brother Fitzroy Muhammad, thank you so much for coming in. All right, so we have embarked on a series, In Search of Our God. Mm-hmm. We're going to go there, but I want to talk a little bit about a few things before we go there. Yes. One is so I was at the launch of the book. Yes. I got there late, very late, because we went through the rain.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, and heard you speak there. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Brilliant work. What your own feelings on that?
Well, I mean, it's continuous work in progress to get the message out, and really what's contained in the book is basically what I've been saying and teaching on the radio, in community centers, in city halls, on the street, in the schools since 1992.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, the idea behind the book Black Studies was really to compile a comprehensive volume, a body of work representing all different areas of philosophy within the Black community. And as I had emphasized, the six basic strands, the six basic ideological strands of Black thought, being Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, the teachings of the Nation of Islam, the civil rights philosophy, Black revolutionary consciousness, and the Rastafarianism philosophy. Now, that does not necessarily mean that there are not additional contributions to the entire pool of Black thought. But you have Afrocentricity, for example, which is generally categorized under Black nationalism. You have a number of different ideological positions that have been taken, but the idea is really to present in a sequenced, organized approach that in particular the next generation of students coming up can have a comfortable learning experience, rather than that information being on the periphery of our extracurricular discussions. It has to be more centered and centric to our people.
A lot of work must have gone into getting this to this point, to publishing. A lot of research. I am reading it, and I'm thinking that I don't know. I mean, this is a lot of research, because you also cite the greats, those who have done also a lot of research, which means that you would have read them too. So, I mean, I can't begin to think. Tell me about that, the work that went into this.
Yeah, well, you know, it's... Well, I am a student of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, And when I was 22 years old, he invited me to St. Kitts to spend time with him for his 40th wedding anniversary.
That was like 2 years
family.
ago. 2 years ago. He looks just like my brother, my actual blood brother. I'm looking at him. He's no more than 25.
I am your brother. I am your actual brother.
Yes, good.
But that was in 1993.
Yes.
And, the inspiration that he gave me in particular to study has stayed with me like a eternal flame from that time to now. And also very instrumental to my academics was Professor Tony Martin, who I had spent a lot of time with when I had moved back to Trinidad from the United Kingdom, where I joined the Nation of Islam.
Yes.
And, being exposed to the great teachings of people like Professor Yusuf Ben Yochanan, Ivan Van Sertima, Leonard Jeffries, John Henry Clark.
And you honor them.
Yes, absolutely.
The book,
Every single one of them. I mean,
Yes.
there are approximately 370 references in the book.
Yes.
And the idea was to, again, tie together each and every single one of the classical greats, because we also have to bear in mind that we are persistently producing great young thinkers. So we use the term classical in reference to those who would have laid the foundations in particular, but we also have to honor, some of the great new young thinkers that are coming out. Even among our teenagers, we have so many brilliant minds who we have to allow to stand on our shoulders, as the African proverb says, standing on the shoulders of giants, we're able to see much clearer into the future. So, we also have to pay homage and respect to the young generation coming up and give them that motivation and inspiration as well.
Brilliant work. Once again, commendation, and thank you so much for this. If you notice, I'm way in the middle on black religion.
Yes.
On black religion, which fits right into some of what we want to talk about today as we go in search of our God. One of in the concept, chapter 6 is black religion, and then the subtitle is a concept of God. The first few lines: the underlying principle of all traditional African religions is a belief in and worship of one supreme being, one supreme God, being who is understood to be the revealer of all truths, the creator of the universe, and the sender of all prophets and messengers. That's interesting and a good place for us to continue to pick up, because we were talking about this last week.
Yes.
That African traditional spirituality, African traditional religions are seen as pagan in the mainstream Christian, in mainstream Christianity. And so and you talk about gods and not about one supreme being. So I want you to develop on this a bit for me, that statement of all African religions based on this one supreme being.
I mean, first of all, the reverse of that is true when it comes to the idea of paganism. But, I want to make reference to the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who we tend to, and of course our enemies also tend to, categorize our greats within a dimension that they feel is safe for us to observe them within. But Marcus Garvey, in addition to his philosophy of black nationalism, was also a tremendously spiritual man. And in his course on African philosophy, Message to the People, lesson number 5 was entitled God. And Marcus Garvey said, quote, God, being universal intelligence, created the universe out of that intelligence. It is intelligence that creates. Man is a part of the creation. So universal intelligence and man were created in the image and likeness of God only by his intelligence. It is the intelligence of man that is like God, but man's intelligence is only a unitary particle of God's universal intelligence. Now, that is an extremely profound insight into the reality of not just who God is, but what God is. You cannot have intelligence without a mind, and you cannot have a mind without a brain, but the intelligence from the mind or the brain is a projection of the spirit, of the biology of the individual who's a human being. And as we are taught in the scriptures, God created man in his own image and likeness. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we, African people, black people, were made in the image and likeness of God, and that we have been looking everywhere where God is not. And if we were to look in the mirror, we would see that image of God. But in particular, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that God is a man. Now, I pray that you indulge me on this, because we all have the Bible. But in the Bible, it speaks specifically of the reality of God as a human being. Genesis chapter 18 speaks of 3 men visiting the prophet Abraham, and one of those 3 men, it says, was God himself. It says Abraham washed his feet. He invited him into his home. They sat in the kitchen. He asked his wife Sarah to prepare a meal for God as a human being, and they had a conversation about Sarah, the wife of Abraham, bearing a child. And it said after they left, they walked to the city of Sodom. In the plainest and clearest language in Genesis 18, God is described as a human being. In Exodus 33:11, it says Moses spoke to God face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Isaiah 42:13 says the Lord thy God shall go forth as a mighty man. Also in the Bible, you read of passages like Genesis 5:22, where it says Enoch walked with God. Genesis 3:10 says Adam heard God's voice. Genesis 8:20 speaks of God smelling roast meat. Isaiah 7:20 speaks of God getting a haircut and a shave. And what is most profound as well is Exodus 34, chapter 1, where God gives Moses the law on tablets of stone. And apparently Moses either misplaced or broke the tablets and asked for a replacement. Verse 5 in chapter 34 in Exodus, God actually tells Moses to meet him at his home, which was on top of a hill. And it says when both of them went there, the 2 of them, God and Moses, prayed to the Lord. The Lord being the supreme being.
May I interrupt you a bit? Because, all right, let us, the Bible obviously is what you're citing.
Yeah.
Which, and I want to come back to that, but let us move from that a little to talk about, as Dr. Barashango, the late Dr. Barashango points us to, Africans as peoples of the Bible, but also to say, do we need the Bible as a reference point to understand our own spirituality as African people?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. However, we are engaged in the mission and literally the spiritual warfare of liberating the minds of African people, a vast majority of whose minds are literally speaking the language of the Bible.
True.
It's like the English language itself, where we cannot really get through to our people unless we speak English to them, even though we may loathe the language. We have no choice but to communicate within it. Likewise, many of our people have really embraced the Bible by force, as the history has shown us, but nonetheless, such is the case. And within that book, which we know has its roots, of course, in the Metuneta, the original African writings, the hieroglyphics, even Acts chapter 7, verse 22, speaks of Moses, from whom the 5 books of Moses came from, getting his wisdom from the ancient Egyptians. So prior to the Torah or the Gospel or even the Quran doesn't claim to be a new book. The Quran condones or endorses the fact that it is a collection of a multitude of scriptures and the wisdoms that came out from them. But going back to the original, to the beginning, but even the Bible in the book of Hebrews chapter 3 verse 10 says that the law of God was written on the hearts of men before it was ever written on tablets of stone or on paper. So that's where the law comes from. And that root or beginning of us being made in the image and likeness of God was the beginning of religion itself.
All right. And I must say that I do agree with you that we have to walk back through that path of destruction to find ourselves.
Yes.
The path through which we lost ourselves.
Yes.
Sankofa, literally, to go back and claim it. All right.
Moving forward while looking back, the Sankofa bird.
Yes. All right, so that, and I'm going to jump. I like the fact you're taking us through this to point us to ourselves.
Yes.
You say, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, look in the mirror. I mean, you're the image of God. What you have done in the book, in terms of traditional African religions, is to briefly mention a few.
Yes.
Going back to right. Can we go through these?
Yes.
Just for our listeners' sake, and please get the book and buy the book and read the book. But we're going to go through just this chapter. Traditional African religions, as we go in search of our gods. And you started with Ma'at. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Ma'at was known to be the first formal religion or religious system that has been practiced by all of humanity. It is a system of African spiritual science. However, this does not necessarily mean, of course, that Ma'at was the genesis of religion itself, because we naturally, as a spiritual people, our entire existence, our entire presence on the planet, and our appreciation of nature and our living in harmony with the elements is religion itself. It's a way of life.
Do you see a difference between religion, and I'm going to come back to Ma'at, spirituality and religion?
Of course. I mean, it's spirituality is the purity of our being. It is the link or the connection between ourselves and our Creator. It is the encasement of the life form and life force, which is the creative energy of God being transmitted through a human being. Religion is really what has caused a lot of conflict, damage, and destruction to human societies and civilizations. So in the Quran, for example, the last revelation of the Holy Quran, which was Surah 5, verse 3, it says Islam, which is, again, a word in Arabic which means entire, complete submission to the will of God. It says Islam was given to us as a religion, not necessarily that it is a religion. It is a way of life, but this way of life was given to us as a religion. Religion has dominated politics, and it has been a means through which conquest has taken place with economic objectives. And what is really odd is that, and I've asked this question, if you were to see with your own two eyes, if you were to be the witness of a man perpetrating criminal deeds, and you're looking at someone, you see him commit murder, and you're shocked. Then you see him commit murder again. You're looking at him, he's not seeing you. And then he moves around, he commits theft, he steals something, he robs something, he sets a house on fire, he rapes someone, then he kills again. And you're seeing all of this happening. And then he sees you and he walks up to you. You're terrified now. You're wondering, what is he going to do to me? And then he comes up to you. And then he says to you, I have a religion. I want you to follow my religion. Now, the rhetorical question is, would you follow his religion after you've seen what he's done? Of course, everyone would say, of course I won't. No. But in truth and in fact, the answer is yes, because that's what we have done. Because the same people who committed genocide against us, murder, torture, rape, robbery, banditry, kidnapping, and a persistent genocide for 400 years against African people, those are the same people who introduced us to religious system and gave us religious teaching and training that we have not only accepted for one generation, but for multiple generations, even coming into the 21st century. So that within itself is an enormous contradiction based on the fact that our colonizers and conquerors told us who God was. In addition to that, they told us through education, in the name of God, that the earth was flat. And then they learned later on through science that that was not so. And then they changed God's opinion through their religious institutions and updated God's knowledge to give to us. How could you possibly do that? They taught us that the sun used to rise, reach its zenith peak in the sky, and then descend below the flat plate of the earth. Those who contradicted that and said, but no, the sun is, first of all, it's larger than the earth by hundreds of thousands of times. It's 93 million miles away. No, you have to go to jail for saying that. How dare you contradict what God said? You're either burnt at the stake, put in prison, executed. But then later on, they discovered through science that those people that they just executed, they were right. Okay, so again, they updated God's opinion. At one time, they condoned slavery. They condoned women not having equal rights. They condoned racism, a conquest of capitalism being spread with a Eurocentric, ethnocentric approach to conquering and enslaving all of humanity. God condoned that. But when their opinions eventually changed through enlightenment, they changed their God. And when they changed and updated their God, they gave their revised version of God to us. And we have worshipped it. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in Message to the Black Man that society has invented their own ideas of who and what God is and then worship them in return. They have created, it's worse than idolatry. Because in idolatry, you look at a physical object or image and pray to it. But to invent a concept through the figment of your imagination that condones all different types of evils and then call it God and then worship that for as long as its shelf life keeps it valid, and then they change it. But look at God today. God has changed again because now their God that they have invented and reinvented is now condoning the marriage of men to men and women to women. And you can do it in the church as well. And
so there we go again. Well,
God alone knows what God will be in a few years from now.
One of the things that you've done in the book also is just to make reference to the Council of Nicaea. And I'm really sorry that we can't go through everything.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
Now, of course, going back to Mayat, which was based on the 7 principles of truth, justice, propriety, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. And this being the earliest known religious system to man. And of course, Ifa has been known as the largest or most widely practiced system of African spiritual science in the diaspora, largely due to the Yoruba presence.
Which is what we dealt with last week, actually.
Okay, great.
In the search, yeah.
Right. But 2 religions or African religious systems that are very important for us to take note of in the Caribbean are 1, voodoo, and 2, Orisha. Now, Orisha, both really having roots in the Yoruba peoples, but voodoo in particular, which has been seen as exclusive to Haiti, there's a huge irony there because voodoo actually evolved as an attempt to syncretize Roman Catholicism with traditional African faith-based systems, as well as Orisha, same thing. In Trinidad, the attempt of the Yorubas to hold on to their traditional African heritage as religious systems being merged with Roman Catholicism, which was imposed upon us. You had the emergence of new manifestations of religion. And then out of that, the concept of obia. Now again, these are terms that literally terrify white people and even some of us.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where I was going. That and most of us right now, and there's a reason for that. So let us look at that. Why are we so terrified?
Yeah, and this is simply because of the way that anything African at its core has been seen as alien to us as westernized Africans. But looking at voodoo, for example, in truth and in fact, just being real about it, we as African people practice the worst kind of voodoo. and the worst kind of obeah, which is white voodoo and white obeah. Because what do you call Santa Claus? Santa Claus is pure white obeah. That is European obeah. The idea of the Christmas tree, where the same Christians in the book of Jeremiah in the Bible, it says, do not do as the heathen does and go into the forest, cut down the tree, and decorate it. You have the Easter bunny, the Yule tog, the Yule log, the Yule tide, the mistletoe. All of that is pure paganism. Even when we look at the days of the week, Monday named after worship of the moon, as the Europeans did. Tuesday, T-I-W, named after a god of war. Wednesday, Woden's Day or Odin's Day. Thursday or Thor's Day, named after Thor, comic book hero who throws his hammer across the sky and causes lightning. Friday, Frigga's Day. Sunday, from the worship of the sun. Then you have Saturday, which was named after the Brumalian Saturnalia festival. Now, again, if society wants to do anything satanic, what day do they choose to do it on? Not Tuesday or Thursday, it's on Satan's Day or Saturday. Even the calendar, the months of the year, Juno, goddess of marriage, Aphrodite, April, goddess of fertility. You have Mars, war god. And then you have these two Caesars, Julius and Augustus, who put their names on months and disrupted the entire calendar. So now Sept means 7, but September is now the 9th month. An octogram has 8 sides. An octopus has 8 legs. Octo means 8, but October is now the 10th month. Novene means 9, but November is now the 11th month. A decimeter has 10 centimeters. A decameter has 10 meters. Des or dis means 10, but December is now the 12th month because of Julius and Augustus, and one wanting more days than the other, putting their months in the middle. And now some of us have to wait 4 years for a birthday if we're born on February 29th. And we African people run into the bridal registry, we want to get married in June. Why? Because Caucasian people said that that's the goddess of marriage or whatever, Juno, so you get married in June. And then we wonder why our marriages don't work out. You understand? We want to get married in June. So it's all white supremacy, and it's all based on, again, a paganism that is more like obeah and voodoo, but our own traditional African heritage that we should be able to more historically identify with, we become afraid of.
But and this is where I was going again, because I heard you saying that part of that fear, it is not just black people who are afraid, as African people who are afraid of ourselves, of our original spirituality and religion, but also white people. And so this fear is springing from where?
Yeah, but
what is the reason for this fear?
We have adopted their fears. And a lot of it, there's something called Dale's Cone of Learning, and which is in educational psychology. And I don't think I have all of these numbers perfectly accurate, but it suggests that based on the functional patterns of our brains, we remember 10% of what we read. We remember 30% of what we hear. We remember 50% of what we read and hear, but we remember 70% of what we see and 90% of what we do. So seeing and doing has a much greater impact than just reading or hearing. And we have been bombarded with negative images that were African. When we look at the television news media, for example, CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox News, we see images of Africa with poverty, squalor, barefoot, bare-breasted women breastfeeding. We see villages with flies and famine and little children with no shoes on their feet but have machine guns, and everyone is sharing a bowl of rice in a old town where there's no sign of any kind of modern technology. And this has put a barrier between ourselves as Africans in the West, in the diaspora, and fully embracing the mother continent as a place of motherhood for all of humanity.
And this for me is a very vexing issue, and we're going to interrupt the conversation with our brother David Mohammed just for a short moment to speak with representatives of the Sailor Hole Fisherfolk Benevolent Society. And you might have heard now in the news that a major tripartite agreement was signed on Friday between the Urban Development Corporation, the UDC, and the Port Authority of Jamaica and the Sailor Hole Fishermen Benevolent Society. The agreement, the press release said, paves the way for total transformation of the Oterias fishing village. Now we have members here from the Sailor Hole Fisherfolk Benevolent Society. How are you doing, sister?
Good morning.
You know, go on, say it again. All right, go again, say good morning. All right, so I kind of figured that we're going to have a little problem with that mic. So if we could just borrow a David Mohammed mic just for a minute. Just go there for me, sis. And let me just hear your response to this, because we're hearing that there is a $75 million agreement with the Sailor Hole Benevolent Society and the UDC and the Port Authority of Jamaica. There was a picture and so on of those who signed. Orville Grant, President of the Sailor Hole Fishermen Benevolent Society of Oterias, Senator the Honorable K.D. Knight, OJ, Chairman of the UDC, Maureen Varon, Port Authority Jamaica Board, Mervis Edgehill, and also, others. We'll talk about that in a little while. So, remind me of your name again, my sis, my good friend.
Good morning. My name is Olive Byfield from the Sailor's Hole Fisherman Beach Friendly Society.
And Olive, when I saw this, I thought, wow, how did they manage to get the fisherfolk to sign on to an agreement which in essence is signing away their land, signing away their livelihood, signing away themselves and their children's future? Tell me about this. What's this?
What I know of, we didn't make any agreement with them. They go behind the 6 of us back.
When you say the 6 of us, who you mean?
9 is the executive. 3 of them, Orville Grant and the vice president and the secretary, go and sign behind the 6 of us. And we didn't know. The plan supposed to come back to the 9 of us that we can view the option as what they said. And we, the 6, did not know about it.
You did not know that this agreement was being signed in Kingston last Friday?
No, darling.
Do you know what is in the agreement?
No, we did not see
Has
it.
the president said anything to you?
No.
Did the UDC say anything to you?
No.
What about the Port Authority?
No.
What about your lawyer?
Nothing at all. We've been calling him and him don't. It's just a vice bill we're getting from them.
Well, can we just say something here? We tried, and here is my broadcast assistant, Shamara Preston, all of yesterday to get Mr. K.D. Knight, Senator K.D. Knight, and who else were you trying to get, Shamara? Mr. Grant, and the Ministers Fraternal, and I don't think the Ministers Fraternal is wrapped up in this. We just couldn't get them. But we can't get anybody ourselves, because the minute I saw this last night, I panicked, honestly, for the welfare of the fisherfolk on Fisherman's Beach. What is it? Where do you go from here? Because this is
the same thing happened to us. We don't. This is not justice to us,
my sister.
As the other 6.
What are you going? What is the Benevolent Society going to do now?
They're supposed to fax the paper to the Benevolent Society, and they did not do it. Mr. Grant did it.
So was it signed?
What we hear on the news yesterday from IRFM.
Well, this press release came to us under the signature of, let me see if we have, all right, you have the email, the signature, right? Because we printed this, the signature is not there. But the communication manager, it says, as part of the agreement, all the current occupants of the village will be compensated for their stake in the area in a package totaling some $75 million. How many people there now? How many?
86.
So basically, okay, so this is the biggest ripoff in the history of Jamaica.
This is a fraud.
Right, so it's less than $1 million.
Yes.
Dollars for land worth millions of dollars.
Yeah, they said it values $7.5 million. That's what they said to us in US.
$7.5 million US dollars.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of Jamaican dollars. Somebody can work it out and tell me. All right. It says it guarantees access to the beach for fishermen in perpetuity. All them big words. We not know what they mean.
Okay.
All right. 16 other persons with structural holdings will be accommodated in the new development by way of leases in the redeveloped site. So out of the 86, only 16
coming back.
Will go back. So what's going to happen to the others?
And the news state that is 9. That's what I heard on the news yesterday.
They're going to have 4 large restaurants and 12 smaller facilities.
Yeah.
The new complex will be constructed by the Port Authority of Jamaica, will include a jetty for storage of fishing boats, cold storage for their catch, lockers for storage, facilities for the scaling and gutting of fish, and disposal of water used in the process, facilities for vending fish, and sanitary conveniences. The thing that is striking me, though, and I want to say this to Professor the Honorable Gordon Shirley O.J., that in all of this, the bottom line is tourism, and it is white tourism, and it is making this, whitewashing this for white tourists to come in. My question to you, and you're not the only one here. Who else we have with you? What's your name again, my brother? Mr. Lawrence? Our name is... No, man, listen. She's not here alone.
No.
We're not going to make the sister stand alone, you know. No. Who is she here with?
Mr. Lawrence and Kirkland. Fisherman
Kirk?
Yeah.
Stand up, my brother.
And Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Lawrence?
We want the justice.
Stand up, my brother. Don't leave it on the sister alone.
No,
because this is going to be a fight for your lives.
For our livelihood.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and your children's lives.
Yeah.
So, where do you go from here?
We want to know the next step we can take about this, because this is not justice to me. And the other fisher folks, this is not justice.
So sis, let me just go back a little. You're saying that you heard this on the news.
Yeah.
You're a part of the Benevolent Society.
Yeah, I'm the PRO. And they did not say anything to us.
But this signing is done. And you can't find your lawyer?
No, and we don't. The president, the vice president, and the secretary did not told us nothing. The other 6 members.
You're here this morning?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we heard it on the news, and we didn't aware of it. They didn't show us nothing at all about this signing. We didn't see the agreement, what we're signing about.
All right. Can somebody get the Member of Parliament, Shahini Robinson, on the line for me, please? What else do we need? Anybody? Shahini, O'Neill, Lisa Hanna, any member of Parliament for St. Anne, whether or not they're responsible for Ocherias. Yeah. Because somebody, Mr. KD Knight, we have been trying to get you, sir. Who else? Who's a Port Authority man? You want to go in? No, somebody. We need to get somebody on the line to explain to us what has happened here. What has happened here? What has happened here? We have been following this for a few years well now.
It's true.
And there have been, I myself was kicked out of they tried to kick me out, out of a so-called private meeting, right? Because there are plans for the development of Ocherias, and we are not against development.
No, that's
but when development is excluding the masses of the people, we have a problem with that. It is time for news. Just a minute to news, so we don't have to go for the news. But we're going to try to get somebody and talk to them. And in the meantime, just stand around a bit and let me get some information from you. Mr. Lawrence, you never know about it either? Kirk, you never know about it?
The wider public didn't know.
All right. So that's what it is, Cherie. Half of them didn't know. It's signed, but they didn't know. All right. We are going to be a little bit late for the news, but news coming up right after this. Thank you so much, my sister. All right, so we have the local and international headlines coming your way in just a moment. Sherry Hay is standing by with that. When we come back, we're going to speak briefly with Professor Vereen Shepherd. Then we're going to open the phone lines and take your telephone calls for Brother David Mohammed. Also, in the meantime, we want to talk to Mr. Bert Samuels too, not about this necessarily, but Bert, you do have similar questions about tourism in Jamaica and all-inclusive tourism in particular in Jamaica, and the way that Jamaican people are excluded from access to even the coastline, access to the beaches.
Minister of Health Horace Daly has instructed the management of the Kingston Public and Victoria Jubilee Hospitals and the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SARA, to halt all action being taken to bury the bodies of the babies that have been in the morgue, some since January this year. This directive follows media reports yesterday that the hospitals attempted to bury the bodies of more than 80 babies. Mr. Daly has requested that a detailed clarification of the circumstances be made before any further burials can proceed. The health minister says he has summoned the management of the hospitals and SARA to a meeting at the ministry today to discuss the matter. Meanwhile, the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SARA, has sought to clarify the circumstances under which the Victoria Jubilee and Kingston Public Hospitals were in the process of burying the bodies of some babies. SARA says preliminary reports from the senior medical officer for Victoria Jubilee indicate that the babies died over a period of time. However, there were delays in the issuing of the requisite burial documents, which allows for the bodies to be released to the funeral home for burial. The cause for delays varies and includes the absence of parents from scheduled post-mortems, which is required for a burial order to be issued, as well as delays in the decision of parents to take custody of the body of stillbirth babies. Sarah says the policy governing the burial of babies dictates that when parents fail to present at postmortems, the hospital takes responsibility for the burial of the body. It says some mothers wish to take custody of the bodies of their babies for burial. To facilitate their grieving and decision-making process, the hospital will wait up to 30 days before the state engages alternative methods in order to proceed with a burial. The annual Run for Your Heart event is underway at Stadium East in St. Andrew, put on by the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. Run for Your Heart is part of a drive of the foundation to raise funds towards its island-wide screening program. The funds are also used to purchase medical supplies and equipment, which will enable the foundation to continue to offer services to the public at subsidized rates. Executive Director of the Heart Foundation says the event started many years ago as a way to encourage people who had had heart attacks and heart surgery to begin exercising again and to lead a normal life. However, Mrs. Deborah Chen says since then the event has evolved into a sponsored walk, jog or run where people are encouraged to do as many laps as they can. Mrs. Chen points out that it is not a race and certificates are issued at the end of the number of laps which each person completes. Minister of Health Horace Daly is expected to be there. The event is open to the public and was slated to begin at 7 this morning and will run until 11 a.m. There is no entry fee for the event, but people are encouraged to bring a donation and fill out a form or obtain sponsorship for each lap completed. Minister of Local Government and Community Development Noel Arscott has reiterated the government's commitment to delivering on its promises despite economic challenges. He says the local authority continues to do its part in improving the garbage collection and the fire service in Jamaica. Mr. Arscott says he has received several complaints about garbage collection, and as such, the ministry has ordered 17 new garbage compactors and 5 fire units, which are expected by the end of the year. He says when these garbage trucks arrive, Jamaicans will see some improvement in the collection of garbage. And in news overseas, Pope Francis has said he hopes next month's pause in the Central African Republic will open a new chapter for the country as he visited a conflict zone for the first time. The Central African Republic has been torn by violence between Muslim rebels and Christian militia. The Pope was speaking after arriving in the capital. Acting President Catherine Samba Panza has asked him for forgiveness for the country's recent religious violence. Large crowds lined the road for the airport to welcome the Pope, and people cheered and sang when he arrived at a refugee camp. Finally, Turkey says it has received the body of a Russian pilot killed after his plane was shot down on the Syrian border. The Turkish Prime Minister has said the body of Lieutenant Colonel Ogel Peshkov will be given back to Russia. The Turkish forces shot down the plane, saying it had violated Turkish airspace, which Russia denies. The incident has led to heated rhetoric between the countries, with Russia announcing a package of economic sanctions against Turkey.
This is going to take more than a program, but let us try and get all the sides. So we have back with us Mr. Lawrence, we have Kirk, and of course Ms. Byfield. Ms. Byfield, let me just ask you, did you know that this agreement was going to be signed?
No.
Give her the microphone for me, please, Dwight. Right. Did you know this agreement was going to be signed?
No. The agreement is we're going to view the option, what we asked for, to come back to us. And
Mr. Lawrence, did you know the agreement was going to be signed?
No, not on the appointed time.
Sorry, let me check him. Yeah, say that again?
Not on the appointed time that it's signed.
All right, Kirk, did you know it was going to be signed?
No idea.
All right, so we have Orville Grant, who's the president. Orville?
Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning. We tried to get you all of last night when we saw that the agreement was signed. Here we have members of your team. You're the president. We have your PRO and other members here who said they did not know the agreement was going to be signed.
Okay, that's only one member of my steering committee and two other members out of 81 people. So you see the type of response we're talking about here.
Yes.
What percentage is that?
No, we're not talking about the percentage. We're talking about at least a member of your steering committee who says she did not know.
No, we did not know.
Right. So,
okay, let's explain everything to you, Andrew. Okay, after 3 weeks of vigorous negotiations, right? It was decided that when the Port Authority actually acknowledged our demands, which was completed this week, the last few issues on the contracts were settled this week, we would sign the agreement, right? We got the go-ahead and the blessing from the ministers for Turner that while everything is okay, and we told our group this from last week, whenever these terms are ready, we will go ahead. Because that is the end result, Andrea, of all the 3 weeks of negotiation.
All right, so
after negotiating for 3 weeks, we expect to sign after the 3 weeks, after everything suited us.
All right,
so that is what everybody on the beach knew that.
All right. All right. So Kirk is saying he didn't know. Mr. Lawrence, you're saying you didn't know.
No, not
and
I didn't
so
know.
too is Miss Byfield.
No.
Yes. So hang on there. Let me just have who want to respond. Yeah.
After the meeting on Thursday.
You didn't come to the meeting on Thursday, remember?
No, listen. The Tuesday, the meeting.
Did you come to the meeting?
Listen what I'm saying.
The last meeting?
Mr. Grant, just hang on, because the last time you were all here together. And now you are antagonistic. Yes, go ahead.
And the Tuesday, what we went with the meeting with the fraternal, we did ask for some option to change. And we didn't get back an answer from the option that we agreed to. Right? And we did not see the paper as what you and the secretary said to us, the other 6. So we disagree. So when the paper come back, we will view it and see if the option is suitable to us. Then we take it to the wider public. What is the 80 other member? And we did not see it. Yesterday, we asked the secretary, we hear the news that it's signed. Him saying, never remember to told us, as the PRO, to told us.
You didn't have, the secretary told you didn't remember to tell you?
Yeah. Yeah, that is Bob.
Yes, Mr. Grant.
If Julie was at the meeting on Thursday, that was a conclusive meeting where the lawyer read the new terms and the agreement. She would have heard, Andrea, that all the requests and demands were met, right? And the next step was to sign. And she was meeting from the meeting as a PRO.
Right,
she should have been to the meeting on Thursday at the Church of Christ.
All right, go ahead, Kirk. Go ahead, Kirk.
Yeah, the understanding we get from that meeting is that we'll get the contract. Each member will get the contract. You can read it and review it, and if you like it, we go ahead and sign.
Okay, you were at the meeting,
yeah,
and that was the understanding that came from the meeting. Yes.
But the lawyer read the terms of the contract in the meeting.
Listen to him. He said this is the understanding he got from the meeting. Go ahead, Kirk.
He understood.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
So we'll get the contract. What?
To look at it yourselves.
Yeah. And if we decide to sign, we can sign.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't get that?
No.
No, we don't get the paper all now.
Okay. Angela, there be two different contracts, Angela. Let me explain it. The contract for individual shop owners will be done by individuals, right? This contract that we are talking about is a tripartite agreement between three parties, Port Authority, UDC, and ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. This contract is to be done and signed by the president, the general secretary, and the vice president. You know these contracts are set up already, right? So what they do, they're misunderstanding the type of contract. One is for the structures, right? And one is for the tripartite. So
the press release said only a few persons will be allowed back on a lease agreement.
No,
man, it's a press release. 17. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
16 people out of 80.
No, but it's in the contract, and the numbers are in the contract, and the names.
No, I'm looking at the press release here. It says 16
from
people.
Who? Press release from who?
From the communication. Bring that up for me again. The communication manager. The 16 of a persons with structural holdings will be accommodated in the new development by way of leases. In the redeveloped site. Signed by Monica Campbell McFarlane. CD Communication Services Limited. So, individually, what did each fisher folk get, especially those with a $75 million agreement and 86 people? What is the individual payout?
Anja, all right, it is categorized, right? Fishermen.
Orville, hold on. Say it again. Yeah, fishermen.
Yes, the $45 million is for the fishermen, right? That's part of the compensation is for the fishermen.
How many fishermen?
It's about, to be exact, I'm not sure, it's like 40 much, Andrew.
Okay, so $1 million.
No, fishermen.
Less than $1 million for the fishermen, for each one, right, individually.
Right. And then,
no, we don't know no agreement.
What did you say, Angela?
I was asking if you all signed off on less than $1 million for each individual.
No, but Angela, 3 weeks ago, those same people standing in front of you agreed at the total of $75 million. I wasn't at either of the meeting. They agreed to accept the figure, Angela. You understand?
Right, so you accepted the figure 3 weeks ago?
It's not money anymore that is done fast.
Like that.
They accepted it in a meeting.
Ms. Byfield, did you accept the figure?
When we asked the lawyer, the Evelyn, for more money, him said we cannot get any more money if we ask for 100, and him said no, not 100. We cannot get more than 75 or 70.
But they agreed that's what I'm telling you. They agreed to accept the 75. So
did you agree to accept the 75?
Right now. They accepted it.
No, I'm asking them. Did you agree to accept it?
No.
Mr. Lawrence, hold on, Orville. Mr. Lawrence, did you agree to accept it?
No, the lawyer planned to go and review it again.
Yeah.
And come back with another meeting that we could decide whether the attorney would agree that is going to be the 75 or
Okay.
Otherwise.
Andrea,
All right.
Andrea, my general secretary have all the minutes, Andrea, all the information. I'd like you to contact Bob. I'm going to give you Bob's number.
All right.
Bob is waiting for you to give you all the... He's got everything recording on his phones, everything, Andrea.
All right. So what we'll do is that we'll pick this up on next week or later on in the week, I'm quite sure.
You don't want to call Bob even a minute?
No, well, I can't call...
He's anxious to disclose some information.
No, could you ask Bob to
credibility?
I don't mind. I don't know. What Bob's credibility is? Are you bring Bob's name up? We don't know who name Bob. Bob's credibility is not at stake right here because we didn't bring his name into this at all. We're just trying to find out what happened. I have an ongoing program, and even though I want to get to the bottom of this, I have made way. I have Professor Vereen Shepard standing by in Geneva, so that is why I'm cutting this, because this cannot be worked out in this space. Obviously, there is a problem, and we hope that it can be resolved. Thank you very much, Orville. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, ma'am. Look here, the Fisher folk are still in the studio. Look here, an injustice has been done. I'm calling it as I see it because I've been following this story for a very long time. The way I calculate it, when I take out lawyer's fee at how much percent? 10 something percent, 11%, 11%. 11, let me say last time. When I take out the lawyer's fees, right, out of that 75 million is 86 people, right? Right. So did you value the land? No. There was no valuator called in, not from the Fisher folk perspective. They say no. You can't stand up here all morning, you know. I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know what to do. Did we get Miss Shahini? Can you get Andrew Portia? Anybody to say, here we have some people with some concern? The Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, the Minister of Education, anybody? Minister of Labor, Social Security, Minister of Sports. So you're left alone. I don't know what to do on this. I am as shocked as you, and I am as hurt as you, because this is a well-fought battle. But if there is what appears to be an injustice done to the people at Fisherman's Beach, now I know why they kept locking me out, because they were making these plans.
Especially Mr. Grant.
No, we're not calling him. But you know, we have to go to Geneva. I'm so sorry. We'll pick it up later. All right? Continue the fight. I don't know what you can do after it's signed. But we'll pick it up later. Professor Vereen Shepard is in Geneva. Professor Shepard?
How are you?
Boy, Vereen, I am here dealing with talking to the Fisher folk, right? At Fisherman's Beach. Remember that? Well, something went down and there's a signing and so on. When you come, we'll tell you about that. But wow, it's a sad situation. An injustice has been done. Yes. All right, so Vereen,
I haven't been following that particular news. I've been following others, but when I come back, of course,
yes,
I will try and get up to speed with it.
Right, because this just broke overnight. I think it was Saturday into Friday evening into last night. All right, so very good to have you on, Professor Vereen Shepard.
Thank you very much, Cabo, for linking with me, and hi to all your listeners.
All right, thanks so much. For this quick call, we're going to talk about the Zong. And before we talk about the tribute to the victims of the Zong, tell us about that slaver, as you tell us that this is the way we're to reference them. But the Zong itself, tell us about that ship.
Well, it was first owned by the Dutch. It was, the Dutch were also heavily involved in the transatlantic capturing of our ancestors and shipping them. And then it was acquired by the English. Now, interestingly enough, it was called the Zorg when it was Dutch, which means care. if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
And then it was changed to the Zong by the British. So it really was owned by Liverpool enslavers.
Yes.
And the relevance for Jamaica is that in 1781 it captured Africans from Ghana and shipped them to Jamaica. But on the way they made some navigational errors. So the voyage, they shot over Jamaica and had to turn back. So the voyage took 108 days instead of 60. And the reason it came to attention is not because about 132 enslaved Africans were murdered, but because they claimed insurance because in their view, quote-unquote cargo had to be thrown overboard to save the voyage because they said they were having had these navigational difficulties. They were running out of water and didn't have enough water for everyone on the journey to survive. So they deliberately threw overboard. Some say 132, some say 142. The figures differ. And today, in 1781, would have been the first day of the, what they call jettisoning, but the murder of our ancestors. Because on the 29th of November, 1781, the captain made a decision. He huddled with the crew. They all decided that to save the rest of the voyage, they would throw people overboard. So 54 enslaved Africans, mainly women and children, were dragged from below deck, unshackled, and heaved from the ship into the ocean. So that's the significance, a little history of it, and the significance of today.
Wow. Painful even now, but as Professor Van Sertima says, whether something happened 5 million years ago, 10 million years ago, or 5 minutes ago, it occupied the very same space in your consciousness, and so we feel that. We feel that. And so then on December 22, there is an event to pay tribute to the victims. Tell us about that, Prof.
Yes, we want to gather at the monument to the Zong in Black River at 11 a.m. on the 22nd of December this year. Never mind that some people will be in their Christmas shopping and so on. These enslaved Africans never saw the Christmas.
A lot of us are going with Minister Louis Farrakhan. We ain't spending any money around this time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And therefore, we have to fix our priorities. And I'm appealing to those who people of conscience in Jamaica to let us gather there on the 22nd of December. And what is the significance of the 22nd of December? It is that's the day in 1781 that the ship finally arrived in Jamaica. It offloaded the enslaved Africans at Black River. Now, many people don't know that Black River was a port for the disembarkation of captured Africans, but it was. So after these 108 days, and let me just say that it was 442 enslaved Africans that they captured and shipped from Ghana. But by the time it arrived in Black River, only 208 were left. And so the mortality rate was 53%, so just over. And the sad thing about it is that, many of those who they were trying to throw overboard struggled, and the crew then decided, in fact, some people were climbing back on the ship. One man told them, "We know what you're doing. We know why you're doing it. Even if water is short, we will try to share whatever is left." But they still put iron balls to their ankles and threw them back. And some of them threw themselves overboard in what the ship's captain said was an act of defiance. But that's the nature of the Ma'afa. So when the ship finally landed in Black River, as I said, the 208 left were sold for 36 pounds a head. And then they tried to claim insurance, and that's what brought the case to
prominence,
attention. And of course, Olaudah Equiano has been credited with having used this to intensify the anti-slavery lobbying. But the case is very interesting. We won't go into that. We don't have time.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. We have to go there at another time as we look forward to December 22.
But I'm asking people to come out. The Bicentennial Committee, as you know, Cabo, erected the monument in collaboration with the Institute of Jamaica in 2007. Not many people know about it. Each time I talk about it, people in St. Elizabeth say, huh? So I hope they'll find the monument in Black River near the sea. Let us gather and pay tribute to our ancestors.
And that will be on December 22. Write that date down. You'll hear much more about it in this space and across IRI FM. We're going to be there on December 22 to pay tribute to our ancestors. Professor Shepherd, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again unless there's anything you want to say quickly regarding this.
I just want to say that when we gathered on the 25th of October in the rally in Mandela Park, and we talked about 150 reasons why Britain should apologize, this time we are carrying on the same, it's part of the same series, say you're sorry, apologize, no, reparation, no, and this time we're saying 132 reasons why.
Okay.
The 150 reasons why on the 25th of October was because it's the 150th anniversary of the Morant Bay War. This time is the anniversary of the Zong massacre. So we go from one massacre to the other in our history. And I don't understand why people in Jamaica, so many people in Jamaica, cannot see the rightness of the reparation struggle.
Well,
I'm saying, when you go into the details of our history and dig back the layers, peel back the layers, you see why you should get on board in memory of your ancestors. So come out and join us. Find your own way to Black River. We have no money to bust you there. I'm sorry, because the Reparation Commission has run out of money.
We're going to find our way.
We have no money
to Black River. We're going to have to do this.
We have to do this.
Thank you
and,
so much.
Several people have already indicated to me that they will be there. And so let us do this. And don't let Christmas get in the way.
Thank you so much, Professor Shepherd.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to say this today on this anniversary.
All right. Thanks so much. Professor Vereen Shepherd there, live from Geneva.
When we lose our African connection, we lose our world connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
But can we take 2 calls for you, Brother David?
Sure,
if it's just 2 calls.
Yeah.
My brother, there's a lot happening here.
Yes, and I was following the conversations. Well, of course, at first it was great to hear Dr. Vereen Shepherd. I'm not sure if part of the commemoration is because it was actually this weekend from November 27th that the ship had arrived in Jamaica.
December, right.
Morning.
Oh, sorry about that. Hotep, go ahead, caller. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Greetings, Hotep. Uncle Jasanev. This is your brother, Ras Darwin.
Uncle Jasanev, my brother. Go ahead.
How are you?
We're well, if you two are well.
Wonderful program, as well as a wonderful topic that you have taken up as far as in search of our God.
Thank you.
I do want to say, though, that in the idea of searching for God, I think I sent a text out to everyone this morning that says, when you look in the mirror, you see God, and looking for God is like looking for light on the sun's surface.
Yes.
Okay? So you are it. You are the light. You are God, right?
Yeah.
I do want to touch one more thing as far as the sellouts and the lack of consequence. There will never be a change if these sellouts never pay a consequence. Okay? Now, the last thing is, religion is a spiritual cancer. And once you catch it, your true spirit slowly dies and is replaced by a Holy Ghost.
Brother Dawit, let me just have Brother Muhammad respond to you. Do you want to hang up?
Yes,
Thank you so much. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, I entirely relate to the distinction and differentiation again between religion and spirituality, and that religion itself has been used really as a means to justify and legitimize criminal actions perpetrated by state authorities, rulers, kings, and governments. And religion, or the badge or label of it, has been made to sanctify criminal deeds, from slavery to colonialism to World War I, World War II.
And the Pope is in Africa now, as you talk about religion and slavery. And the Africans in Central Africa this morning asking for forgiveness from the Pope. I don't know if you heard that in the news just now, that they have asked him to forgive them for the religious wars in Central Africa. Can you hold your comment a little while? I know you got to go, but let me get back to this. Oh, goodness. Hotep?
Cabo.
Yes.
Believe me, I would really want to talk to this gentleman. Can you get him back? Because the Fisher Folks issue is very important, and we should have a say. These people should keep a meeting, Cabo. And those people that signed the agreement, you see the people that was in the studio, they should go on back, arrange the rest of people, throw out these people out of the committee and don't accept that agreement and continue to protest for something that they did not sign.
They're going to need legal advice. But go ahead.
Yes.
I wish I could come about Brother David. I mean, I know he's going to leave shortly, but we'll try. But go ahead. Do you want to say something on that?
Yes. No, that's why I said you call him back. I just the Fisher Folks.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks for calling. All right, thanks for calling. He's right about the Fisher Folk. By the way, any quick comment on that call to the Pope for forgiveness?
Well, I understand that the Pope in the past had addressed the issue of forgiveness, in that the Church asking Africa to forgive. I heard Minister Louis Farrakhan speak on that. Also the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is the second largest Christian establishment. You have the Catholics first, then the Anglicans, and the Archbishop of Canterbury had hosted a commemoration for the enslaved Africans in 2006. That was when the Queen of England was present and Prime Minister Tony Blair, and a brother came forth with anger speaking about it. But that is a very important issue, because point number 1 on the 10-point plan of action for reparations is actually a full formal apology.
Yes.
You have had statements of sorrow from, again, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, regret. You had Ken Livingstone, former mayor of London. You had the United States Senate, United States Congress. And then you have David
Cameron, who says, move on.
Yes, when he was here.
Get over it already.
Yeah, because there's this fear to fully accept liability for
But for the
what took place.
Africans to stand up today and ask the Pope to forgive them.
No, but that's absurd, because I mean, really, the Church has had a consistent history of spreading their religion through the use of the sword and the shedding of blood. You've had the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, and in addition to that, with a lot of the focus being on Islamic terrorism, you have really had more Christian terrorism. I mean, it's not a religious voice, but the whole idea of Guy Fawkes Night or Fireworks Night, when there was a plan by Catholic priests to blow up the British Parliament on November the 5th, 1605, it was because of their concerns about the spreading influence of the Anglican Church. Even the whole anthrax scare, that was Christian terrorism against abortion clinics. Now you have the terrorism over the Planned Parenthood. Look at Anders Breivik in Norway in July 2011.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He killed close to 100 people, and he described himself as a Christian crusader trying to preserve traditional Norwegian Christian values.
Or the Lord's Resistance Army in Africa. And it's an interesting thing, because a lot of wars continue to be fought in the name of Christianity and in the name of Jesus.
Right, but they never use the term Christian terrorism.
No. Let's go back to the line. Hotep?
Hello.
Hotep, my sister, go ahead.
How do you?
Hey.
Two things.
Yeah.
I have been told years ago that Obia was a means Almighty God, and so is voodoo. I need that to be explained, because
that Obia was what? Sorry.
Obia means Almighty God, so it's not a witchcraft. And voodoo also means Almighty God, and it's not a witchcraft. I was told this by someone who did a whole lot of study in Africa.
Right. Well, these terms from the perspective of African people have always been spiritual terms. As a matter of fact, in the British West Indies in the early 1800s, an ordinance was passed to ban African people from practicing obeah in the same way that African people were banned from beating African drums, but African people were outlawed from practicing obeah because it was seen by the British not only as a religious expression, but also they determined that the Africans who practiced traditional African religions were more economically empowered. And there was always an objective on the part of the Europeans to ensure that African people were not economically independent, particularly after slavery, because they had to ensure that they had an available workforce of Africans who can continue to work on the plantations and estates. So they found that we were pauperized under European theology, where we kept our focus on an afterlife, that when we die, we will go to a sweet by and by in the sky, but have nothing sound on the ground while we're still around. And it was only the only economic ambition that we had was in death, because suffering was seen as a virtue and being poor was seen as a means through which one can be rewarded in an afterlife. So those Africans who practiced traditional African religions and Islam, they found themselves owning land, building their own homes, building their own houses, starting schools, starting their own businesses. And that was seen as a threat to white economics.
Thank you, my sis.
Okay.
All right. Can we take one final one?
Yes.
Or two?
Yes. Yeah. we'll take the last one.
Oh, goodness. We'll keep it here all morning if it's up to us. All right. Let's take a final call for Brother David Muhammad. In the meantime, the book is available.
Yes. And
let me do this, and then we talk about the book. Hotep?
Hotep?
Yeah, Hotep, my brother. Go ahead.
How you do?
We're well, thanks.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad to know that you have been inspired to find the God. You are in search of God, innit? That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
No?
So, say that again?
You said you are in search of God.
In search of our God, yes.
Yes. But listen, the compass that you should use to find God is the Bible.
Is the Bible?
Yes, it's the Bible. You have to stick to that. You understand?
I have to.
Yes, you have to stick to that. You can't stick to nothing else.
So don't try to Pertem Heru.
No.
Or the book of coming forth by day.
No, it is the Bible.
Yeah. And the reason for that is what?
The final thing that's supposed to happen is for God, because you have to look for God in man. If man is really God, he is the Alpha and the Omega. He has the male spirit and the female spirit. So it's the female spirit that has to be released. That is why John was crying on the.
And I can only find that in the Bible.
Pardon?
I can only find that in the Bible.
Well, I don't know anywhere else where you could find it. You know.
Okay. Well, can you respond, David? I'll take this.
No, but I'm telling you that this is the Bible.
I'm saying that I disagree with you without saying that I disagree with you. But because I have a special guest, he might not disagree with you. So let me go to Brother David. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you for raising the issue. But I mean, the brother said towards the end of his remarks that he does not know, and the truth is that there has been an earlier truth, but within the Bible we can find truths, not the only truths or exclusive truths, but in the book of Psalms, for example, chapter 86 verse 8,
written by Akhenaton.
Yes, it says, "You are all gods, children of the Most High God." And Psalms 82 says the same thing. You are all gods. Jesus in the book of John chapter 10 verse 34 says, "It is written in your law that you are all gods." So it is understood that we are not just children of the Most High God, but that we were made in the image and likeness of God himself as African people. But I would like to say, well, first of all, that the book Black Studies.
All right, let me thank you, caller.
Oh, he's still there.
Thanks.
I think he's
no, he's there. He's there. Do you want to say anything else, or that's it?
No. I was just saying that the hello.
Yeah.
I was saying that when John was crying on the Isle of Patmos,
yes,
is because no one was able to release the female spirit.
All right, we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it there for now because of time, and I want to talk about that conversation on the female spirit, but we have to do it another time. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for calling. Yes, brother, about the book.
Right. Yeah. So the book Black Studies is now available at the different branches of the Kingston Bookshop.
Okay. Brilliant.
All right. So our people can get them there. Also, this morning, I don't know how late it is, but every Sunday at the Nation of Islam headquarters, which is at number 1 Dreamland Drive in Brayton, in Portmore, we have discussion forums from 11 o'clock. This morning, the book is going to be available there as well at a special price, close to half price. So anyone who's able to make it, there's also going to be a live message from Minister Louis Farrakhan. That's why we're rushing down there.
Yeah, you're going to be a little bit late, but take your time on the road, please.
Yeah. But it's on Kingston bookstores, Kingston Bookshop, that is, Black Studies, and it's also available on Amazon, and I can be located on facebook.com/Black Agenda Project, youtube.com/Black Agenda Project, instagram.com/Black Agenda Project, and of course blackagendaproject@gmail.com as an email address, and also blackagendaproject.com, the website. So the handle is Black Agenda Project, and whether it's YouTube or Facebook, just not Twitter.
Yeah.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, email, website.
So Black Agenda Project is what you look for. And the book is available. It's in the bookshops in Kingston, but it's also going to be available today in Portmore.
Yes, Portmore. Yeah, at the Nation of Islam headquarters, number 1 Dreamland Drive in Brayton.
And I'm going to take one more minute from you, just to give us a teaser on the book, because quite a few chapters dealing with different aspects of Black identity.
So chapter 1, we mentioned the 6 ideological strands of Black thought, and you get the teachings and philosophies from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Minister Louis Farrakhan, Marcus Garvey, Martin Delaney, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, Kwame Ture, the Black Panthers, Dr. Martin Luther King, C.L.R. James Henry, Sylvester Williams, George Padmore, etc. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2 looks at the 7 dimensions of racism: bigotry, intolerance, xenophobia, prejudice, stratification, segregation, and institutionalized racism, and also racism on all the continents against African people. Chapter 3 is Caribbean Studies. It traces the Federation of the West Indies to CARICOM, CARIFTA, CSME, OECS. It looks at all of the slave rebellions, 62 slave rebellions in 21 Caribbean countries, as well as
I read through
all of
those.
the Haitian Revolution. Well, it basically covers the entire Cape and University syllabus. Chapter 4 is African history, looking at the 3 periods: classical African history, the African Holocaust or slavery, and the Reconstruction period of African history. Chapter 6 we dealt with today, basically religion.
We tried.
We touched a couple pages of chapter 6. Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is an entire book on its own as well, Black Sociology, which looks at your basic themes of functionalism, Marxism, socialism, neo-Marxism, postmodernism, globalization, but also sociological issues like poverty, crime, family life, parenthood, the HIV/AIDS crisis, the prison system, etc. Chapter 8 is Black Politics. It's basically political science, but it traces the struggles of Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Nelson Mandela of South Africa, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and many of the early African pioneers who received independence from colonialism. Chapter 9 is Black Economics, which if I start talking about, we won't finish.
That's
but
true.
It covers Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, Dr. Claude Anderson, Powernomics, Black White Wealth, Black Enslavement, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, and several other publications like that. And then, of course, Chapter 10 is Black Psychology. Again, looking at the 7 main strands of psychology: behaviorism, psychoanalysis, psychodynamics, cross-cultural, sociological, psychological studies, humanistic psychology, cognitive psychology, etc. But it particularly examines all of these with statistics, facts, references from the black experience, how psychology has affected African people, especially students in the schools. The skin color perception studies of Errol Miller of Jamaica, of Jane Elliott, of Dr. Amos Wilson on African child psychology, also Dr. Kenneth Clark and the Clark doll test and the perception of black being evil and white being pure. And it also has the entire Willie Lynch speech. It addresses Alvin Morrow's theory of reversing the Willie Lynch syndrome. And the book ends with a summary of all 21 of the study guides by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan entitled Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development. So, I mean, that is a very quick overview.
Yes, yeah.
Like I said, 433 pages, 370 plus references.
But I like your writing style, which, you could have gone much more academic, but it is students can read this and, you can read it to your classes and so on. So it is not such a hard book to read.
Yes, thank you.
That's a good thing about it, and the style you wrote and conversational and so on. And
I will definitely be continuing to listen to your program online from back in Trinidad, and I'll introduce as many people as I can to it, and I appreciate so much.
Right. Next time you have some cascadura. You know what they say about those who eat the cascadura?
I hear, yeah.
I think it's Samuel Selvon or one of them wrote that.
Yeah,
you must return to Trinidad. You must return to Trinidad. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what it looks like, to be frank with you. I just thought I'd throw that in.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming in. And a safe travel.
Thank you.
Back to Kingston and to Portmore. And we apologize to the NOI for having kept him over time. But you do understand that you've got to share Brother David Muhammad with the rest of us who won't be able to make it to Portmore today. Now, we've got about 4 books on the Running African book list for the book club right now. But believe me, we're putting this on. It's going to be a permanent fixture for the Running African Book Club. Black Studies, the Black Book Mind Revolution by David Muhammad. We're putting this on, and it's going to be on there right along with The Destruction of Black Civilization, right along with Stolen Legacy, because there are some books in the Running African Book Club that are there forever from 1990. It's in the Pantheon.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. We're taking picture. All right, Brother David Muhammad, safe journey back, as I said before. Walk good and tell him how and howdy. Thank you, my brothers. Thank you. Drive safely now. No speeding. We want to go to speak with Mr. Bert Samuels, attorney at law, Pan-African attorney at law. And thank you, Patrick Howell, for the notes you've been writing to me on Facebook. Some of them are long, but I will read them. It says, Kabu, good morning in the name of Jesus Christ, who is the only begotten Son of God and my Father. I am not going against a man searching for his God, but most persons have found their God, including myself. And for those of us who have found our God, that's great. I've also found my God. But the process is not just for us who have found God, but for others who are searching. And maybe, too, for those who have found God, a reminder of how we come to where we are, and whether or not this is it. Do we move beyond this, and how do we make this, Africanize this, to make this more our way of worship? God through our lenses, God when we look in the mirror, God our reflection, so that it is not for those who have found God. And for those who have found God, you can assist with this process of assisting the rest who haven't found God. So it's not like that. Just like when we went in search of Taki and Fibber and Paul Bogle and so on, I personally already knew a whole lot. But that didn't stop me from going in search for those who did not know. And that is what this program is about. It's not about what I know or what most of us know or what some of us know. It is about what the rest of us need to find out for ourselves. All right, so we're going to go to the phone lines to speak with Mr. Bert Samuels. So Bert has written an excellent letter that's published in today's newspaper. And trying to find it here. I must say good morning, to all the folks on the social media, on Facebook and Twitter, on the 107s. My sister in the Netherlands, Aldous Hunker, we see you. But there's so many people who are actively participating in this program in the virtual space, and you are tweeting and you're posting and you're writing your notes. I see them coming in. And there are a lot. I mean, there are a lot, and I really appreciate that. I really can't tell you how much. It takes communication and media to a whole new level when we can do this. When we can not only just use the airwaves, but we're using the idea that we've got this convergence of the digital technologies to broaden not just our scope, but also to reach more people. And this is wonderful. Thank you so much. I am overwhelmed this morning with the response on the social media. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Bert Samuels, Pan-African attorney at law. Bert?
Hi, Sister Kabu, how are you?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm well enough. How are you?
I'm great.
I thank you so much for sending me the letter you wrote to
the... Yes, and it's published. It's published in Focus, page 6 today.
Page 6. Which paper is that? The Gleaner?
Yeah, In Focus section, page 6.
All right, page 6. All right, so it's in the Gleaner today. Bert, I'm trying to find it, but I'm flooded by responses and so on social media, so that it's taking me a very long time to get to it. So give us an overview. I know that your concern is that you spend some time in an all-inclusive hotel, and I wouldn't say shocked, but it drove you to put your pen to paper.
Yes, because what's happening, we have, a lot of these are Spanish investors too, and I had to make the parallel that the coming of Columbus, brought with it in its part, and it was progress for Europe, but it meant genocide and transatlantic slavery or Holocaust. So I was making that parallel that they have, as it were, have a captured market, that they put these 20-foot walls around their all-inclusive hotels. They control who are the tour operators who will get work. They have their own craft shops in it. They have excluded the Jamaican population in these all-inclusive hotels. So it's not for us. It's for them. And they have a captured market that they are, have exclusively to themselves.
And some of the points you raised, from memory on reading your letter last night, this morning actually, include the idea in the first place that formed that gave a need or a perceived need for an all-inclusive. And you talk about whether or not the response to harassment means,
we have exchanged under the guise that we're trying to get rid of tourist harassment. We have dealt with tourist exclusivity for foreign investors, so that the tourists are their captured market, and there's the cottage industry that usually thrive in the communities for our locals to, as it were, have craft shops and other things. They've captured this and have kept these persons in their hotels, and the guests do not leave. So it's all for them and not for us.
For me, and I read what you wrote, and I thought, wow, a simple but profound statement. You also went on to say that you talk about the booking process and questioned whether or not the idea of foreign direct investment, it really, from a tourism perspective, and the way we're practicing tourism in Jamaica, is really benefiting Jamaica, especially when you look at even the process of booking the hotel.
Yeah, because the majority of the bookings all bookings have to be done online. The majority of the bookings are done from overseas by the guests. And I'm asking, are we able to capture all the numbers? Because, we do per head and we do per room. I'm not sure whether we are, with this embrace we have made for these foreign investors, that kind of arrangement, online arrangement, whether we're being scammed with all the figures. Do we know, how can we know that the accounting figures are right? So it's all for them, it's not for us. And all those dollars never gets here. I mean, when the credit card is swiped in Europe or in America, none of that foreign currency gets to Jamaica. So it's just another form of, as it were, absentee owners who are just milking this paradise.
I think you made a suggestion on that aspect of things needed to be studied, that some research, some kind of study, some kind of investigation needs to be done to find out to what extent there is benefit.
That's correct. Yes, and I'm glad you've reminded me. What I'm saying is it worth it? Are we comparing what the traditional tourism used to be, as opposed to the all-inclusives? We may not be coming out in the black when you compare it. And added to that, they put these properties and surround it with what they call jetties, which is really apartheid tourism. What they do, they put all these big rock stones in the sea as if they're trying to protect the beach. It is to keep us out. At the end of these jetties, what is happening is 20 feet of water. Nobody can go around it. So it is tourism, apartheid tourism. Locals can't use the beach. And we have a law that no beach should be privatized, as it were. So they are, in effect, privatizing their beach, cutting off locals from being able to go there. The fisher folk can't come up on those beaches. We can't go there and enjoy it. And it's all for foreign guests.
But Bert, that statement you made there about apartheid tourism, I think is something that we must all walk away from today and think about, because the law as it is now, and you are the lawyer, so you can tell me, the law as it now regarding access to beach, saying that
we should have full access to beach. If you want to get a beach for yourself, you have to apply for a license and therefore to allow people to pay and go in. But these hotels...
But you can only come from a sea. In other words, you can't access you cannot access the beach with a private property which is owned by the hotel.
But what they do, they put these stones out at sea that they're protecting the beach, but it is to keep us out effectively.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
Yes, that's what's happening to us. And we are embracing this tourism. And then we both say, they're coming here with, 1,000, 2,000 rooms. They're coming here with they are a state within a state. They lock the guests out from us. We can't, no guests move out and go along the road and buy from vendors. They are all in the hotel. Everything is right there. So I call it the all-exclusive.
Yeah, because
it excludes us.
The all-exclusive. Yeah, the all-exclusive. And you talk about the cottage industries that sprung up
they're failing. We're going to be failing.
Oh, goodness. And there is another aspect, too, as China comes in on the other end with the craft that is made in China, that is replicating the craft made here.
Yes.
That what is the end result of this, though? I mean, where do we see this going? If tourism is one of our most important industries, and it is as exclusive as it is in terms of whether or not there is benefit to the society from what's coming from tourism, and then we have the death of the cottage industries. We have the death of the craft industries. I mean, where do we go from here? This looks like
well, you see, there's a long list. You just give them the list. Let's tick them off. The tour operators are no longer getting the job because they have their own tour buses. The craft is not made in Jamaica anymore. It's cloned in China, and the list goes on. So what is in it for us? The answer is nothing. And what I said is, this is the big fish eating the small fish to their extinction. You and I. That's how I ended it up. So that, when we see these investors coming here, they're just offshore investment companies. And I did make the point. The entrepreneur that comes here and his motto is to live and raise family here and do business, these are not the hotels. They don't live here. They don't raise their families here. They're not patriotic. And it just belongs to them. But what is good about you and I, Cabo, and I commend you on this, I'm not in the parliament sitting on one side or the other. I'm speaking about what I see, and I treasure my independence. I admire your independence because this is an issue that nobody wants to speak about because you don't want to drive away investors. They have driven us away from tourism. That's my point.
Yes. That's it. And what do we do? What do we do? Well, what you have done today, I think it's brilliant by highlighting this, writing this letter, sending it to the media. It's in today's Gleaner for those who haven't seen it yet. Get your copy of that. Read this letter and let us come back and talk about
Let the conversation continue. It's our country, it's our paradise, and we are not going to allow brand Jamaica to be the benefit of non-Jamaica.
Oh, man, I leave it there. Bert Samuels, Pan-African attorney at law. Thank you, my brother.
Okay, my sister.
I'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right. My name is Kabu, my aunt Karu.